Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today, or rather you may have watched the other ones anyway, but if you haven't, make sure you go and check. We're going to be taking a look at 7970s in Crossfire, so 2 cards, and we're going to be using a pair of HIS cards. Now the HIS cards are reference cards, reference clock, reference cooler, it's reference design basically. So we're going to be taking a look at a pair of these. All of the benchmarks and everything that we're going to use in the video are going to be with the cards both running at stock. But all the games that you see will be completely maxed out. But the benchmarks you'll just have to see, like for argument's sake, Unigine is an open and run benchmark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the rig briefly, go into benchmarks and everything, and then we'll talk about performance and my thoughts and everything else at the end. Right then guys, as the bench rig is going to be out of shot for the majority of this video because of my triple screens, I have to run the rig underneath the desk just so that all the cables and everything reach to the cards. It's a bit of a pain. I really should buy some longer cables, but anyway, I thought I'd give you a look around the bench rig. So, power is being supplied by a Corsair AX 1200 watt. The motherboard that everything's hanging off of is an Asus Rampage 4 Extreme. Cooling is a Corsair H100 and they're Noctua direct flow fans. They're not the best performing fans on that on the H100, but they are very, very quiet, and I mean just phenomenally quiet on it. So although the temperatures aren't as low as you could get if you had some really high speed fans, we all know what I'm like. I favoured the quietness with them, so that's why I've used them. So memory is Corsair GTX 8. It can do 2400 megahertz, but my CPU can't hold it there. I have proved it does do it on another rig, but I'm just waiting for a new CPU to come from Intel so that I can start running it at 2400. Obviously we've got a pair of HIS 7970s. I need to wash my mouth out with soap. 7970s running there in Crossfire. For all the benchmarks, they're just going to run normal. For the games, they're all going to be at 5760 by 1080, run across 3 screens. And the games will be running at their absolute maximum possible. So yeah, enough of me chatting, enough of you with a bit of nerd porn there, because I actually quite like the look of the bench rig at the moment. It's quite pleasing. And before anyone asks, I've got the fans on the H100 blowing over the top of the rig, just so that there's a bit of airflow there. Although the RAM does not get hot in the slightest, I've just done it so it helps keep the back of the first graphics cool and like a bit of airflow over the top of the board. But anyway, time for me to hush my mouth and let's go and have a look at some benchmark scores. Right then peeps, first of the benchmarks, and one thing I do need to stress is all the benchmarks and all the gameplay that we're going to do will be at stock settings for this, but if you want to see the overclock settings as well, remember to click the link underneath and go to the full overclock 3D written review. But 2 cards, 3D Mark 11 P score of 14,771. Just to give you a rough guesstimate, when I did the Mars review on this previously with a single card, it was 12,000. So quite the increase when you think about it. But I'm going to keep the benchmark bits short and sweet, and we're going to move swiftly on to the X score. Straight in with the X score then guys, 5,380. Now I'm not being funny, I've seen single cards score less than that with a P score. So that's a monstrous X score for a couple of cards. I'm really quite impressed with that. So now I'm going to swiftly move on because I'm trying to rattle through these because I've got so many tests to do and so many videos to do. I'm going to rattle straight on with some Vantage scores. Okay then peeps. 3D Mark Vantage P score. We've got a P score of 51,470. That's with a GPU score of 53,153 and a CPU score of 47,007. So, again, quite the monstrous score. Right then, my lovely YouTubers, 3D Mark Vantage X score 32,036. That's with a GPU score of 31,503 and a CPU score of 47,213. So what I'm going to do now is do a Unigine run, and we will be back shortly. Right then peeps, please remember this is an open and run benchmark. We've not made any changes to it at all. You can see there with the settings below. But frames per second 69.5 with a total score of 1752. Minimum frames per second were 37.7. Maximum frames per second were 147.5. So again, quite a monstrous score, and a lot of people ask why I don't turn Unigine up or anything. Well, it's just easy just to open and run it, so you can get a good idea of how it would run compared with your rig. But anyway, I think really it's time that we maybe even take a look at some games now. Right then peeps, on to Batman. Now this is completely maxed out and it's playing at 5760 by 1080 res. I will say that the as you see in the top left hand corner of the screen, you can see that it's not actually running the cards at 100%. GPU 1 is at 73, 74. Right, it's slowly going up, 77, 76, 77. And GPU 2 is pretty much mimicking it with the same. So we don't exactly know whether that's going to be a driver problem or like a game dev problem. So to be perfectly honest with you, we can't really say too much about it. So we kind of need to explain that so that the fanboys, because the AMD fanboys will say it's a game, the Nvidia fanboys will say it's the drivers. It really doesn't matter. Now I'm obviously not very good at this and don't normally play this game for toffee, but I'll have a little bit of a wander around. Just so that you can see the frames per second. Now it's quite playable, to be perfectly honest with you. It's surprisingly playable really. I've never been to this bit. I wonder what happens if you fall in the water. Oh, it's not, it's concrete. Interesting. Or is it frozen? Someone tell me. But anyway, I just wanted to have a... I'll go and beat these blokes up. Can you hear the button bashing? I just keep hitting the buttons. I always win, so I can't be doing too bad. Dum, dum, dum. Anyway, you can see frames per second, they've actually gone up while we're doing this. Quite surprisingly. That's him gone then. That was quite nice, the way the screen came in for that final punch and then spread out again. But anyway, still only using 70s percentage wise for each of the cards. So yeah, but frames per second were quite healthy. So let's move on to the next one. Right then peeps, on to Dirt 3. Now one thing I will say is if you look in the top left hand corner, You can see that it's not using the second card at all. And even when we're playing now I'm quite surprised by this, because Dirt was heavily sponsored, stroke funded by, however you want to call it, AMD. I actually know someone that was working on the development team for Dirt 3, because they worked at Codemasters, and they were getting card samples quite a while ago, and they've always worked really closely together, so I find it quite puzzling that they've not concentrated on Crossfire at all. But when you look at the frames per second, you can see that even a single card is just ravaging this game. The game is in 5760 by 1080 with everything turned up to the absolute max, and it's still playing at 60 plus frames a second, so it's quite healthy frames per second really. So maybe that's why they've not really done it before, at least because it wasn't really needed. So yeah, just in case you're wondering why my driving's so bad, I'm playing with the keyboard with one hand. That's why the steering wheel is literally tapping so much, because I'm just, yeah. But anyway, so Dirt 3, absolutely, well, you don't need two cards for this game at all, but it's not using the second card whatsoever. In case anyone's wondering where Battlefield 3 was, there's bound to be comments underneath when people don't watch the whole of the video. But Battlefield 3 won't even start with two cards. So yes, no Battlefield 3 testing. Now, I was going to turn the game off, but I'm so bad at going past these cars, I normally crash into them, so we might as well wait and have a laugh. There you go. Oh! So there you go. We'll end it there because it was funny for you lot. Let's move on to Metro. Right then peeps, on to Metro. As you can see, much healthier percentage usage up in the top left hand corner. 95 and 96% on each of the cards. Frames per second is 35, 36, but we need to remember this is maxed out. Everything turned up to the hilt in 5760 by 1080. Now I can remember when cards like the GTX 580 struggled to get these kind of, well, GTX 570, sorry, struggled to get massive scores with this on a single screen, because it's a very demanding game. Now, I have to admit, I was smashing E then and it didn't seem to do anything, so we'll go back and we'll play it again. That was a new one on me. But anyway, keep your eye on the frames per second, keep your eye on the percentage usage. Boom! Thank you. Well, mate is gone already. You can hear the cards starting to spin up now, because they are being put on an awful lot of stress when you think about it. Percentage use has gone up to 98, 99% on the second card. It's normally the second card that doesn't get used at all, or doesn't get used as much. Now, we've seen enough of Metro, it's got to be time for a conclusion. Alright, I'll kill him first. Congratulations if you got to the end of the video without skipping. If you skipped, why did you? Right, this bang out award from the starting point, and we'll discuss it after that. Performance award for a pair of cards. And yeah, right. As a single card, I will say that a single card would have been is a gold award, because all the reference cards we get gold. But the reason why we gave it a performance is just because there's still a few little things that need ironing out, and that's not necessarily an AMD problem completely. There's still a few things that AMD need to do, but we are on very, very early drivers. But there's also that a lot of the game manufacturers or designers, however you want to put it, they need to do some tweaks as well. And then again, a lot of the games need kind of changing to catch up with this new stuff anyway. Some of the games are still, like Batman for argument's sake, still I wouldn't say are 100% finished and need some serious work. But performance with a pair of these is brilliant. Scaling isn't what I would say amazing. Benchmark wise with a single card, you're looking at about sort of like around the kind of 8,000 point mark. For a pair of them, I'm just looking across now, you're looking at kind of around the kind of 14,000 point mark. So it's still very good when you think about it that way. X score, you're looking at about 6,300. I've got them on the screen behind me in case you wonder why my eyes are going over there. Team advantage is 48,000 for P, and then 27,000 for the X score. All massively healthy scores, and they do go up. Problems when you come to the games, but like I said, that's more the fact that it's early days more than a fault with the card or anything. One thing I will say with two cards, if you're going to be running these on your board, it's a dual slot, but what I would also say is you want at least another gap between. Don't have the cards sandwiched up against each other. Now that again is not a fault with the card, it's just the fact that with these when you run Crossfire and SLI, it's really not a good idea to have them smack bang right up against each other, because the top card will always get warmer, where it's A, it can't breathe properly, and B, what air it does get is going to be warm from the card below. So with a board like the Rampage, where you've got a decent couple of slots gap there, because obviously with this you can get another card in between, but when you've got that decent couple of slots gap, you don't necessarily get too many heat issues, and the Rampage is actually really well spaced for dual cards. A lot of the Asus boards now are spaced this way so that you can get one of their triple slot graphics cards in. Well, actually you can get two of their triple slot graphics cards in and still have a slot in between, and I really, really like that feature. It's something that they seem to have rolled out across the range recently, and that's really, really good. But if you are looking at buying one of the other branded boards, just have a look. You want at least one slot between the top card and the second card. So once it's fitted, there's still at least one completely clear PCI slot. If you can get two, as you've seen with the Rampage, the reason why this hand's going across here is because the board is, or the rig is currently sat there, then it will make a massive difference to your temps, and not only obviously the temps, but it'll also make a difference to the fan speed. So that's the best bit of advice I can give you with that. But it is an eye-watering amount of money when you think about it. These cars, we still don't know whether they're going to be coming in at the £400 mark, 450, because AMD, especially at the time that I'm going live, especially at the time I'm making this video, we've heard originally they're going to be £450, and then maybe AMD have dropped the prices since. So until they actually hit the shops, I really can't tell. But let's say they're £400, so a pair of them, that's going to be 800 quid. So it is an eye-watering amount of money, but as long as the drivers are mature, and more importantly than anything else, the game developers get their act together as well, it's an immense amount of performance. And not being funny, the whole kind of SLI Crossfire thing not working in games is not a new thing. Even back to when Grid was originally released, and I'm talking about a long time ago, and I used to love playing that game. Even back then, that game, and it was a game problem, didn't see two cards, even if you're running them in Crossfire or SLI. So basically all I'm trying to do is make sure that either side of the fanboy camps, because we do know that there's pretty much, you're all going to fall into one of them, or at least most of you are going to fall into one of them. I'm trying to stop the arguments so that the Nvidia boys can't say it's drivers and the AMD boys can't say it's games, because let's face it, people, talk about it, think about it, it's both. If it's drivers on one game, then it's just as much going to be the game on another. So please, for once, stop, do you know what I mean? But considering this is a dual card, we'll go a little bit with the single card kind of goodness, because like I said, if it was a single card, it was a gold award, and it's just because I decided to test the HISs together, and we got a pair of them in and all that kind of stuff. But at the moment, and I do mean at the moment, the 7970 is the fastest single graphics card on the planet, and AMD do 100% deserve a pat on the back for doing it, because it is a noticeable difference compared to the 580. But that in lies where my kind of, not, because a lot of you will say it's fanboys, but it's more my fears as somebody that's objective, that maybe the 7970 has been designed too much to beat the current series of Nvidia cards, maybe not thought too much about what might just be round the corner. Now, I don't really know, it's all speculation at the moment, but only time's going to tell. But at this present moment in time, the 7970 is blazingly fast. As far as the cooler is concerned, they've made a massive leap forward from what was the 6970 reference design cooler. It's a lot cooler, and it is a lot quieter. Now, one thing I will say is it's not as quiet as the 500 series reference design, none of them. But the thing is that the 7000 series cooler is noticeably lower in temps. Although, when you leave it on auto, it kind of sits at about 75 and it doesn't go much more. Now, what I would say is that lower temperature has been traded off more than likely with the fact that the fan speeds do go up a lot more. So they've not kind of got that ideal package. I'm personally a person that would rather than my cooler being sat, or my card being sat at 75, I'd quite happily let it go to about 80 degrees if I couldn't hear it, unless I was really hammering the overclocks or something, or the room was really warm or something like that. But it's not offensively loud. This is probably the best AMD cooler that they've done in years. So they've definitely made a massive stride forward. I think it was just the fact I was hoping where they'd had the die shrink and it was lower power, it was going to be, a lot quieter than this. But let's, be honest, there's so much more performance there. Maybe they've do you know what I mean? They've got, if they'd put this cooler on a 6970, it might have been a lot better. We don't know, do you know what I mean? But there's so many more instructions and stuff and everything going on in this now. It's obviously going to create more heat, so maybe it's a difficult one. It's much better by AMD standards, but I would say this cooler isn't as good as the Nvidia cooler. But that's the be all and end all. When it comes to performance, this is quicker than the 580. So yeah, it's a complicated one. I don't want to be getting caught up with people trying to say I'm a fanboy or anything like that, because it's really starting to grate me now that you can't understand that I like stuff because it works. It doesn't matter what label it was on it. This could have had an Intel badge on it and I'd be telling you the exact same story. Do you know what I mean? You could stick a 595 sticker on this and I'd be saying exactly the same thing. Doesn't matter who makes it. But anyway, we're going massively off topic as we always do. Long and short of it is HIS are a brilliant brand out there. You get a lot of stuff in the box, an active adapter, a passive adapter, so that you can run triple screens if you want straight out of the box. It comes with a bracket so that you can support your graphics card if you want to move it. It's a very, very good graphics card, and I wouldn't think twice about recommending it to you either, because I've never really heard of anything going wrong with the HISs, but as is, it's a reference card, it doesn't really matter. And they are also very well priced. So yes, I know this one has been a bit kind of all over the place, but the trouble is where I'm trying to do so many of these videos all at once, ready for NDA, that my brain quite literally is frazzled. But hopefully I've got enough points across. If you're a bit confused, just go back to the beginning of the conclusion and watch it again, and you may get the points that you missed, the first time round, but I apologise if that is the case. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the Performance Award winning Crossfire. Just happens to be SLI, but it would have been Gold Award if it was a single card. HIS 7970.